Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating and some would say chilling connection between an ancient biblical text and a major event in modern American history. We're going to look at how a specific prophecy delivered thousands of years ago popped up in a totally different context, maybe carrying a warning that was completely overlooked. All right, so let's just dive right in. To really get a grip on the modern parallel here, we first have to go way back. We need to understand the original message, a warning sent to the people of ancient Israel. Our verse-by-verse journey begins in the book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 9. The story really kicks off right here with verse 8. So picture this. It's around 734 BC, and the prophet Isaiah is delivering a message from God to the northern kingdom of Israel. Now, this wasn't some vague general fortune cookie wisdom. No, this was a very specific message for a very specific group of people right in the middle of a major crisis. So you might be asking, what exactly was this crisis? Well, the kingdom had just taken a huge hit. They'd suffered a pretty serious military attack from the Assyrian Empire, which was a superpower back then. So it was a moment of real national vulnerability. But it's their response to this disaster that becomes the entire focus of the prophecy. Instead of turning to God for help, they basically doubled down in defiance. And that brings us to verse 9, which gets right to the heart of why they responded this way. It wasn't humility, it wasn't a moment of reflection. The scripture is crystal clear. Their response was born from pride and stoutness of heart. And this attitude, this pride, is absolutely critical for understanding the vow they make in the very next verse. And this verse, Isaiah chapter 9, verse 10, this is the absolute core of the whole thing. This specific vow is a declaration of self-reliant strength. They're essentially saying, you knocked us down? Fine. We'll get back up and build something even bigger and better all on our own. We don't need any help. This chart just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? They're talking about replacing simple, everyday things with far superior materials. Bricks were common, but hewn stones, those were strong, precisely cut, and expensive. Sycamores were common trees, but cedars were the gold standard, prized for their strength and longevity. It was a clear statement. We're not just going to recover, we're going to upgrade, using our own power. So you might think, wow, what a resilient attitude. You might expect God to be impressed with their resolve. But that is not what happens, not at all. The text that immediately follows this proud vow isn't a blessing. It's a word of impending judgment. And here is the crucial turning point. This defiant pride doesn't lead to security or recovery. According to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 11, it does the exact opposite. It actually invites more disaster. God's response is to empower their enemies and bring them together for an even bigger attack. Verse 12 really spells out the consequences. It describes a total military encirclement. They're going to be attacked from the front and from behind. The result? Total devastation. And it all ends with this absolutely chilling line. Even after all of that, God's judgment still isn't over. This devastation is presented as the direct biblical consequence of that proud vow they made back in verse 10. Okay, so now, fast forward nearly 2,700 years. How on earth does this ancient vow spoken in Israel show up in modern America? Well, this is where the source material draws a parallel that is frankly startling. That exact same defiant vow from Isaiah 9:10 was spoken out loud by American leaders right after a modern national tragedy. Think about it. It's September 12th, 2001, the day after the 9/11 attacks. The nation is reeling, and Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle addresses the country. A few years later, on the third anniversary, Senator John Edwards echoes the same idea. And what ancient verse do they both reach for to capture America's resolve? Isaiah 9:10. And you can understand why, right? It was presented as this powerful promise of resilience, a declaration that, in the face of devastation, America would rebuild and come back even stronger. In that moment of profound shock and grief, it was meant to be a source of inspiration and national strength. But this is where the parallels get even more specific, moving from just words to, well, physical objects. The source points out that the exact symbols from that ancient verse actually materialized at ground zero. A massive, 20-ton hewn stone was laid as the cornerstone for the new tower. And when a famous sycamore tree that had shielded a chapel was destroyed, it was later replaced with a cedar tree. But here's the thing. The core of this analysis really hinges on what was not said. While the leaders quoted the vow of defiance from verse 10, they stopped right there. They left out the biblical context, the part that comes immediately after. So, what does come right after that message of rebuilding? In the original scripture, what is the direct consequence of making that vow? It's the verse of judgment. The very next line in the Bible, the direct response to that vow of defiant rebuilding, is a warning of further attacks. So the message that was used to inspire resilience is, in its original context, actually a prelude to disaster, not triumph. And as one final, truly striking detail, the source points out the verse number itself, the verse of judgment that was overlooked, Isaiah chapter 9, verse 11. The numbers corresponding to the date of the attack, 9/11. So, this all leaves us with a really powerful question. When we hear those words from Isaiah 9:10 today, should we see them as a timeless vow of human resilience? Or should we see them as they were originally intended, as an ancient warning against national pride in the face of tragedy? It's a question of interpretation that directly connects an ancient prophecy to our modern world.